The stars above shimmered like cold eyes watching from a distance. Among them drifted a small damaged cargo ship. Its hull was cracked, the engines barely working. Inside, hidden between broken crates, sat a young alien girl. Her name was Lyra. Lyra's skin was a soft pale blue with a faint purple tint, and her small elf-like ears twitched at every sound. Her long hair was messy, tangled from weeks of travel. She had been running for a long time. Ever since her planet was destroyed, she had nowhere to go. She had landed on 5 planets before. On each one, she begged for help. On each one, she was pushed away. Your kind brings trouble. We don't want aliens here. You look strange. Go away. Lyra never fought back. She only wanted a place to rest, a place to call home. But every time she tried, doors were closed and eyes looked at her with fear. Now her ship was failing. The emergency system locked onto the nearest safe zone, Earth. She had heard stories about humans. Some said they were kind, others said they were dangerous. Lyra had no choice. The ship dropped into Earth's atmosphere and crashed in a quiet mountain area, far from the big cities. Smoke rose from the trees. Birds flew away in panic. Lyra climbed out of the wreckage, coughing and weak. Her legs barely worked. She followed a dirt path until she saw a small wooden structure, a barn. She hid behind it, watching from the shadows. There was a farmhouse nearby with fields and a warm yellow light shining from a window. It looked peaceful. It looked safe. But Lyra was scared. Every place she had been to before ended in rejection. She didn't want to be yelled at again, so she stayed hidden. That night, it rained. Lyra curled up under an old cart, her arms wrapped around her knees. The cold wind made her tremble. Her stomach growled, but she had no food left. Still, she didn't move. Inside the house lived a man named Ben. He was quiet, lived alone, and didn't talk much to the nearby town. He liked his simple life, growing food, fixing things, and reading books. Lately, he had noticed small signs. Tools moved from their place, a bit of food missing from the barn, footprints near the animals. He thought it might be a fox, or maybe a kid from town playing tricks. But something didn't feel right. The next morning, Ben woke up early. The rain had stopped and the ground was muddy. He followed the prints behind the barn and froze. There, under the cart, was a figure, small, thin, shaking. He stepped closer. Lyra heard footsteps and gasped. She tried to run, but her legs gave out. She hit the ground with a soft cry. Ben saw her clearly now. Her strange ears, her bluish skin, her wide, scared eyes. He was shocked, but not angry. He held up his hands slowly. "Hey, it's okay. I won't hurt you." Lyra didn't understand the words, but his voice was soft. Not like the others. Ben took off his jacket and gently placed it over her shoulders. "You're cold," he said. Lyra didn't move. He pointed to the house. "Come inside. You'll be warm." Lyra hesitated. Her mind screamed, "Don't trust him," but her body couldn't take much more. Slowly, she nodded. Ben helped her stand. She leaned on him as they walked toward the house. His home was small but clean. He guided her to the couch and brought a warm blanket. Then he went to the kitchen. She watched him closely, still ready to run. Ben returned with a bowl of soup. He placed it in front of her and handed her a spoon. She looked at it with confusion, so he gently showed her how to hold it. Lyra took a small sip. Her eyes lit up. It was warm, rich, and comforting. She whispered something in her own language. Ben didn't understand, but he smiled anyway. That night she fell asleep on the couch, wrapped in warmth and peace for the first time in months. Ben sat across from her, wondering who she was, where she came from, and why she looked so lost. The next morning, Lyra woke up before the sun. She looked around the room. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't large, but it felt safe. She walked to the window and looked outside. The world was quiet, with mist over the fields and birds calling from the trees. Ben came into the room with 2 cups. "Good morning," he said. She tilted her head. He handed her a warm drink and pointed to himself. "Ben." She blinked, then slowly pointed to herself. "Lyra." They had spoken their first words. Ben smiled. "Nice to meet you, Lyra." She didn't know what that meant, but she smiled too. In that small moment, something began to change. Not just in her life, but maybe in his too. Lyra stayed quiet as Ben moved around the kitchen. She held the cup he gave her, still surprised by the warmth, not just of the drink, but of his actions. She had never met someone like him. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't afraid of being kicked out. But she was still unsure. Why was this human helping her? What did he want? Ben noticed her worried eyes. "Don't worry," he said gently, placing bread and fruit on the table. "Eat what you like. I'm not going to hurt you." Lyra didn't understand his words, but his voice had no anger, no fear, just calm. She slowly reached for the bread and took a bite. It was soft and warm. She nodded slowly, and Ben smiled. "That's better," he said. After breakfast, Ben walked outside to check his animals. Lyra followed quietly, watching everything with careful eyes. The chickens clucked, and the cows mooed softly. She had never seen animals like these on her planet. Ben pointed at a chicken and said, "Chicken." She looked at him, then back at the animal. "Ken?" He laughed. "Close enough." Lyra smiled for a second, then stopped herself. Happiness felt unfamiliar. Ben began teaching her simple words each day. He pointed at things and repeated their names. Lyra listened and copied. She was a fast learner. He learned too. She would draw symbols from her language in the dirt, trying to explain things. One symbol looked like a broken planet. She drew stars around it, then crossed it out. Ben understood. "Your world gone?" She nodded slowly. A deep sadness filled her eyes. Ben didn't say anything. He just sat beside her. Sometimes, silence said more than words. That night, Lyra sat by the window and stared at the stars. Ben came in with a blanket. He handed it to her. "You don't have to be afraid anymore." She looked up at him. "Raid?" He nodded. "Yes. Afraid." She repeated the word, then whispered, "No, afraid." "Here." Ben smiled. "Good." Days passed. Lyra grew stronger. She helped around the farm, feeding the animals, carrying baskets, watering plants. She was quiet but careful. She wanted to repay the kindness. Ben didn't ask her for anything. He just enjoyed the company. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky orange and pink, they sat on the porch. Lyra held a small flower she picked from the field. She turned to Ben and asked, "Home?" Ben looked at her. "This? Yes, this is my home." She pointed to herself, then to the house again. "Lyra, home?" Ben thought for a moment. Then he nodded. "Yes, if you want it to be." Her lips trembled slightly, and she lowered her eyes. That single word, yes, meant more to her than anything she had heard in years. But not everyone was happy. In town, a few people had started asking questions. Ben had been seen buying extra food. A child said they saw a strange girl near the farm. Rumors began to grow. Some thought he was hiding someone. Others believed he found something alien, maybe even dangerous. A man named Harris, who often boasted about being protective of Earth, took special interest. He didn't trust aliens. He believed they brought trouble. One day, while Ben was in town buying supplies, Harris followed him home at a distance. He hid in the trees near the farm and watched. When he saw Lyra, his eyes narrowed. Her skin color, her ears, her odd movements. It was clear she was not human. He left quietly, but not to keep the secret. Back at the farm, Lyra didn't feel safe anymore. She sensed something in the wind. Her kind had a sharp feeling when danger was near. That night she couldn't sleep. Ben noticed. "You okay?" She shook her head. Eyes watched. He looked confused. "Someone saw you?" She nodded. Ben sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. He had hoped to keep her safe, away from curious eyes, but now that safety was cracking. He looked her in the eyes. "Don't worry, I won't let anyone take you." Lyra looked down. "I don't want to leave, not again." Ben gently touched her shoulder. "You won't. I promise." The next morning the sky was gray and the air was tense. Ben worked outside when he saw a truck coming down the road. 3 men got out. Harris was one of them. Ben walked over calmly. "Morning." Harris crossed his arms. "We heard a few things, Ben. Strange noises. Someone saw something. Not human." Ben didn't move. "And we want to look around, just to make sure nothing dangerous is here." Ben shook his head. "You're not coming onto my land without permission." Harris's voice got colder. "You hiding something, Ben?" Ben stepped forward. "No, I'm protecting someone." The men glanced at each other. From the window, Lyra watched with wide eyes. Her hands shook. She had seen this before, people angry, yelling, pushing her away. But this time, someone stood between her and the danger. Ben stared at the men without fear. "You come back with a real reason and with law papers. Until then, leave." The men didn't like it, but they turned around and drove off. Not quietly, but with loud threats and angry stares. Ben walked back into the house and found Lyra, still shaking. He knelt beside her. "They're gone. You're safe." She looked into his eyes and whispered, "You protect me." Ben nodded. "Always." For the first time, she reached out and took his hand. And in that simple touch, a bond began to grow stronger than fear. The morning after the argument with the strangers, the farm was quiet. The birds sang, the wind moved gently through the trees, but something had changed. Lyra felt it. Ben felt it too. Ben kept working like normal, feeding the chickens, checking the fences, but he glanced at the road more often than usual. He didn't say it aloud, but he knew the men would return. Maybe not today, but soon. Inside the house, Lyra sat with a notebook Ben had given her. She drew pictures, her old home, the stars, and her people. Each drawing told a story without words. A broken city, a cracked planet, a girl walking alone. Ben came in, holding a basket of vegetables. "You hungry?" Lyra nodded. "Yes. I cook?" Ben raised his eyebrows. "You want to try?" She smiled and pointed to the kitchen. "Teach?" Ben grinned. "All right, let's cook." They moved around the small kitchen together. Lyra watched him closely and copied what he did. He showed her how to chop vegetables safely and how to stir the pot. The food wasn't perfect, but when they sat down to eat, Lyra laughed quietly, for the first time. Ben leaned back in his chair, watching her. "You're smiling more these days." She nodded. "Because I feel warm here. Not cold. Not alone." He nodded slowly. "Good. That's how it should be." As the days passed, their bond grew stronger. Lyra learned more English. She practiced every day. Ben would point to objects and say the words, and she would repeat them. Sometimes she said them wrong, and he'd laugh kindly, helping her correct it. She taught him a few words from her language, too. Soft sounds that felt like music. She told him that her language didn't just describe things, it described feelings. One day she pointed to a flower and said, "La Luna." Ben repeated it. "La Luna?" She nodded. "It means small and beautiful but strong." "Like me?" Ben chuckled. "Yes, just like you." They walked in the fields in the evenings. Lyra liked watching the sun go down. She said the colors reminded her of the skies before her world was lost. Ben didn't ask for details. He didn't push. He knew that when she was ready, she would tell him. One evening, as they sat on the porch, Lyra finally spoke about her past. My planet was peaceful. My people loved art, music, stars. But we had no army. When war came, we had no chance. Ben stayed quiet, listening. I ran. My family told me to go. I didn't want to, but I did. I thought someone would help me. But every world turned away. She looked down at her hands. I started to believe I didn't belong anywhere. Ben gently placed his hand over hers. You belong here. Her eyes filled with tears, not from sadness, but from relief. You are not like the others, she whispered. Ben looked at her. I'm just human. Maybe that's enough. Later that week, Ben took her to a hidden part of the farm, a small shed he rarely used. Inside, he had tools, old books, and extra clothes. He gave her a simple dress and a light jacket. They might come back, he said softly. If they see you like this, maybe they won't panic. Maybe they'll see someone real, not someone strange. Lyra touched the fabric. You want me to hide what I am? Ben shook his head. No. I want them to see who you are. Without fear. Sometimes we hide a little, just to show more later. She understood. Like clouds hiding the stars. But the stars are still there. He smiled. Exactly. One morning they heard a knock at the door. Ben opened it slowly. It was a woman named Martha, a kind-hearted neighbor. She was holding a basket of apples. I heard some people were giving you trouble, she said. I don't care what you're hiding. You've always been good to me, and anyone you help is someone I'll trust too. Ben was surprised. You're not afraid? Martha smiled. I saw her through the window yesterday. She looked scared, not dangerous. She handed him the apples. Take care of her. Lyra peeked from behind the curtain. She waved softly. Martha waved back. That night, Lyra whispered, Not all humans are afraid. Ben nodded. Some just need to see with their hearts, not just their eyes. They built a small garden together. Lyra planted flowers from the seeds Ben had saved over the years. She liked watching life grow from the soil. It reminded her that even after destruction, something new could begin. One night, under a sky full of stars, Lyra sat close to Ben. She said, You gave me food, a bed, safety, but most of all, you gave me hope. Ben looked at her. And you gave me something too. She tilted her head. What? He smiled. Company. Purpose. I didn't know I was lonely. Until you came. They sat in silence for a while, just listening to the wind. Lyra whispered a word from her language. Aloria, Ben asked. What does that mean? She looked at him softly. It means the feeling of finding a home where you never expected one. Ben nodded. Then this is our Aloria. And Lyra smiled, truly smiled, as if a heavy weight had finally lifted from her heart. The peaceful days on the farm were growing fewer. Word had spread in the nearby town about a strange girl living with Ben. The rumors whispered fear and suspicion. Some said she was dangerous. Others said she was a spy or worse. One morning, as the sun barely rose, Ben heard the sound of heavy boots on the gravel. He looked out and saw a group of men approaching. Their faces were serious, eyes sharp. At the front was Harris, the man who had visited before. He wasn't alone this time. Behind him were two others, men from the town who shared his fear. Ben stepped forward to meet them. We want answers, Harris said. Who is she? What is she doing here? Ben kept calm. She's my guest. You have no right to come here uninvited. Harris sneered. This isn't just about you. We protect this town. We don't want aliens living among us. Lyra watched. From the house, heart pounding. She had learned to hide, to stay quiet, but fear gripped her like never before. Ben stood tall. She is not a threat. She is a friend. Harris laughed harshly. Friend? We don't trust alien friends. Ben shook his head. You don't have to trust her, but you will respect her right to live in peace. The men exchanged looks. Tension grew. Suddenly, one of the men stepped forward and pointed at Lyra's window. We could call the authorities, let them decide. Ben's eyes narrowed. You won't, Harris growled. Try to stop us and you'll regret it. Ben raised his voice. I won't let you hurt her. For a moment, silence fell over the farm. Then, to everyone's surprise, a woman from the group spoke. I've seen her, she said quietly. She means no harm. The others turned toward her. She was younger and less angry. If she wanted trouble, she wouldn't hide. She's scared like a lost child. Harris scowled but said nothing. Ben took a step closer to Lyra. You're safe here. I won't let anyone take you. Lyra nodded, tears in her eyes. Thank you. That night the farm was tense but calm. Ben sat beside Lyra on the porch. They might come back, he said softly. She looked at the stars. I don't want to run anymore. Ben smiled. You don't have to. They talked for hours, sharing hopes and fears. Ben told stories about Earth, about humans who fought for peace and kindness. Lyra listened and felt hope growing inside her. Maybe this world was different. Days later, a ship arrived, not from Earth, but from a distant place. It was small and sleek, landing quietly, near the farm. Ben and Lyra watched as a tall figure stepped out. He wore a uniform, calm but serious. I am Officer Kalen, he said, speaking clearly. I was sent to investigate reports of an alien on Earth. Ben folded his arms. And? Kalen looked at Lyra with kind eyes. She is not a threat. He turned to Ben. I know this girl. Years ago I worked in peace missions. I met many like her, lost and scared. Lyra's eyes widened. You know me? Kalen nodded. I know what she has been through. I am here to offer protection. Ben looked at Lyra. What do you want? Lyra thought for a moment. I want to stay here, with Ben. Not in a ship, not in a prison. Kalen smiled softly. Then that is your choice. The following days were different. The town slowly began to accept Lyra. Some neighbors came by to say hello. The woman named Martha brought fresh bread. Children waved from a distance. Ben and Lyra worked in the fields together, planting and harvesting. Lyra no longer hid in shadows. She smiled freely. She laughed with Ben. They built a life together, piece by piece. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with gold and red, Lyra looked at Ben. Thank you, she said simply. Ben took her hand. You didn't just find a home here. You helped me find one too. Lyra smiled. This is home. And for the first time the word felt real. The sun rose slowly over the farm, casting long shadows on the fields. Birds sang their morning songs, and the wind carried the fresh scent of earth and growing plants. Life felt calm. But for Lyra, it was more than calm. It was a new beginning. After the arrival of Officer Kalen, things changed quickly. The official contact brought peace of mind. No one came with threats anymore. The townspeople began to accept her presence. Children would wave when they saw her, and neighbors greeted her with smiles instead of suspicion. Ben watched all this quietly. He never expected to see such change so fast. But he knew it was because of Lyra, because she was patient, kind, and strong, even when everything seemed against her. One morning, Lyra walked through the garden. The flowers she had planted bloomed brightly. She knelt down and touched the soft petals, thinking about how much had changed in such a short time. Ben came behind her and wrapped his arms gently around her shoulders. "You've made this place beautiful," he said. She looked up at him, eyes full of gratitude. "You made me believe I could belong." Ben smiled. "You don't just belong. You made this farm your home." Lyra's heart filled with warmth. For the first time in years, she felt safe. She felt loved. That day, Officer Kalen returned with good news. "The Galactic Council has reviewed your case, Lyra," he told her. "They have decided to grant you permanent protection on Earth. You are free to live here without fear of being taken away." Lyra's eyes widened. "Free?" "Yes," Kalen nodded. "This is your home now." Ben smiled proudly. "See? You don't have to run anymore." Lyra reached for Ben's hand and squeezed it tightly. "Thank you. For everything." Life on the farm continued peacefully. Lyra learned new skills, planting crops, fixing fences, caring for animals. She and Ben shared stories about their different worlds, laughing at the small misunderstandings, but always learning. Sometimes she looked at the stars at night and remembered her lost home. But now she didn't feel the pain as deeply. Instead, she found hope in the future they were building together. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lyra and Ben sat on the porch. The air was warm, and the sky painted with soft colors. Lyra turned to Ben. "You saved me when no one else would." Ben shook his head. "No, you saved me. You showed me what kindness really means." She smiled softly. "Together we are stronger." The farm became a symbol of new beginnings, not just for Lyra, but for the whole town. People started to see that differences could be a strength, not a weakness. Ben and Lyra's story spread quietly, inspiring others to look beyond fear and suspicion. Slowly, Earth opened its arms to new friends from distant stars. For Lyra, the road had been long and hard, but now, standing beside Ben, she knew she had found something she had been searching for all her life. A home. She whispered into the night sky, "Thank you, Earth. Thank you, Ben." And under the gentle light of the stars, she finally believed that she belonged.